Once upon a time, the world was luscious with greenery and wildlife. The air was fresh and crisp, birds flew overhead, and the clouds were pure white. Now, this is not the beginning of a fairy tale story, but it delineates the extent of Earth's debilitation over the last few decades. Today, under the illusion of choice and autonomy, we make decisions without considering the deep-rooted consequences that erode the very right that we possessed in the first place. So today, I will prove that government legislation against climate change is without any doubts absolutely necessary to protect human rights. First, it is imperative we define climate change and human rights. To keep it simple, the former will be defined as a change in global climate patterns, and for the latter, we will define it as per the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, drafted by the UN. Now, it is crucial to make the link between the two, and for that, I would like to bring up the example of Malawi. There was an unprecedented flooding in the country early last year. It covered about a third of the entire country, over 300 people were killed, and hundreds of thousands lost their livelihoods. There was a particular stat that I found shocking. The average person in Malawi emits about 80 kilograms of carbon dioxide a year. The average British citizen, however, emits 7.86 metric tons of CO2. The reality is this: those that are heavily afflicted by climate change are those that disproportionately contribute to it. The people of Malawi have the right to social security. The people of Malawi have the right to live. And the people of Malawi have the right to justice. And that will only be met if legislations are passed against climate change. Climate change is analogous to a war. And who understands wars better than the belligerent human beings that we are? Now, I would like for us to go back in time to 1945, when the world faced what must have seemed almost insoluble problems: the mass destructions of the Second World War, the fragile peace that had been brought about, the need for a rejuvenated world economy, and the list just goes on. But the world leaders didn't just sit tight and hope for a miracle to dissolve all hardships and pain. The leaders took it upon themselves to make the change. They had the capacity, they had the sense of being driven, but never again must the world ever face a similar circumstance. Institutions that had the power to pass world legislations were formed, such as the United Nations, International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. And look where we are today. We bounced back because of the legislations. Now, climate change is a war. Our planet's life is at stake, our human rights is at stake. History has shown how we reacted when the world was in discord. Now we have to forge the new history, and that begins by passing legislations against climate change to protect human rights.